Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. And it's Monday, but we are still going to have a lot of fun today. It's the beginning of the week. We've got lots of cool things to talk about. Two friends from the toy world will be joining me to talk about Toys R Us. I guess we'll be pouring one out. Not literally, though, because there's too many electronic gadgets on this desk. This rundown is going out to our buddy Thomas Huang 2. Good to see EPN in 4K now. Yes, we shot Burnout Paradise in 4K, and that review is in 4K with almost 4K-ish visuals of the game as well, which is pretty rad. But let's get started with our rundown. The next generation of virtual reality kicks off this summer. HTC has announced that the Vive Pro, which was first announced at CES in January, will hit stores on June 3rd and cost $800 US. That's the same price the original Vive launched with in 2016. And since the Vive Pro offers better tech like increased resolution and a lighter form factor, it means VR is slowly but surely coming down in price. As such, the original Vive headset is getting another price cut, dropping down to $500 US. Unfortunately, HTC's best new tech, the Vive wireless adapter, which works with both headsets, won't be released until the fall. Now, this is a great move. This really means that the technology is getting closer to becoming within reach of most consumers out there. The Vive, I think, technically probably has the most going for it. I'm very excited to get my hands on a Vive Pro and see how it stacks up to the competition. I want to see that increased resolution with my own peepers. And I've been really jonesing to jump back in and playing more VR. Moss got me excited about it. I have been dabbling here and there, but there's still so much, flat screen content headed our way that it's you kind of have to pick your battles and choose when you're going to give up that time to play some VR stuff. But things like this, announcements like this, coupled with big, huge game announcements, that's what makes you excited about the new technology. So good luck to HTC, and I can't wait to see what the Vive Pro is all about. Talking about games on a traditional flat screen that I am very excited about. Sonic the Hedgehog is jumping back into the driver's seat with a new racing game. Sega, it's always been weird that Sonic has a car and he jumps in and he's driving a vehicle because he's so fast. But it's fun. Sega has released a short teaser video for an all-new Sonic racing game, apparently titled Sonic Racers. They haven't released any other details, but we do know that this will be the first Sonic racing game since Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed was released back in 2012. That game was fantastic. Expect more details to come racing in soon. Yeah, I actually love that Racing Transformed game. It kind of echoed and mirrored a lot of the same vibes and feelings that I had with Diddy Kong Racing. Ridiculously enjoyable. We've got Power Stone right there. That's Blake's hand. There it is, right, little cameo. Oh, you couldn't see me. Okay, so I am super psyched to see this game in action. I am very fired up to see Sonic get behind the wheel again, even though he doesn't need to. It's almost like Flash driving a car, the Flash. It just doesn't make sense, but still cool. Very fun. Black Panther, in case you haven't heard, is wiping the floor with all the other Marvel superheroes. The new superhero adventure continues to dominate at the box office, coming in at number 1 for the 5th week in a row, which is enormous. This makes it the first time since Avatar came out in 2009 to stay at number 1 for 5 straight weeks. It's now earned more than $600 million domestically and almost $1.2 billion globally, and it's just shy of beating Marvel's most successful film, 2012's The Avengers. This means the Black Panther will soon eclipse the combined strength of all those heroes in The Avengers, although it might be beaten by the next big film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise, Infinity War, which comes out next month. Now, why does Black Panther continue to dominate? It's because it's representation, man. People want to see people that look like them on the big screen, and that's just a clear, signal to Hollywood and filmmakers and studios all over the world that we need some different characters and different stories and more interesting tales told from different perspectives. And Black Panther is also an awesome character, and it had an incredible introduction in Civil War, the character, and so people were excited. It also looks amazing, and it's a satisfying superhero adventure with a great cast. Everybody fired on all cylinders with that thing. It deserves every penny that it's earning, and it deserves to be this huge, and it deserves to be a statement. And along with Wonder Woman, it's change it up, man. We need some more. I hate to just throw the word diversity out there because it sort of it just simplifies it all, but we just need more originality. Let's use originality, okay? We need to be sort of challenged with new ideas on a continuous basis. A whole bunch of white dude superhero movies all start to blur and look the same, so it's great that we're getting some different flavors out there, and I am fired up for more Black Panther. I'm also fired up to see the different kinds of risks that are now going to be taken in the superhero genre, and hopefully across all other genres as well. Now, the box office debut of another big movie is also highlighting some major shifts in the global film market. The new Tomb Raider film debuted over the weekend, coming in at number 2 to earn $23 million domestically. Internationally, the film has done way better, earning a total of $126 million to date, so that says a sequel is coming. Lara Croft is particularly popular in China. Sequel is coming, probably set in China, where it debuted to no less than $41 million, which is almost double what it did in North America. This highlights the fact that China is quickly becoming a more important film market than the United States, which means studios will want to make more movies targeted at Chinese audiences. If Tomb Raider continues to do well overseas, it all but guarantees that a sequel will be made. I want a sequel. I think Alicia Vikander is a terrific choice for Lara Croft, right in keeping with the new Lara Croft games. I think they honored a big chunk of the mythology and the kind of vibe of the new games. It's not perfect. It's not better than Indy. It's not better than the games, which I think is a big challenge with this franchise. If you watch the review that Johnny and I did for Film Fury, we went back and forth. It didn't really kind of present a whole bunch of new sequences that we've never seen in movies before, but what it did get right was the vibe and the feel and the tone of the game and the games. It just didn't beat them. And that's the challenge, right? Games are so good at telling stories, and we're so close to photoreal already with our cutscenes and beautiful graphics and real-time graphics that filmmakers have got a real job cut out for them. You know, it's not just casting. It's not just finding the right location. It's like, what else are you going to show us that we've never seen before? Because these games look incredible, and they're going to be the biggest threat. I keep hammering the point about Ready Player One and the Oasis, but, you know, like when more and more people see how amazing video games are and they can get lost in them, they are going to make the choice to be in the game world a lot more. And it's going to be the biggest threat for sure. All right, let's move on. We've got the world's most famous Tomb Raider is back on the job next year. Of course, I'm talking about my boy, Indiana Jones. Steven Spielberg has announced that the 5th Indiana Jones movie will begin filming in April 2019, with production happening in the UK. That doesn't mean the film will actually take place in the UK. Spielberg and Disney will likely be using Pinewood Studios outside London, so we'll have to wait and see where in the world Indy is traveling to in this new adventure. If filming begins in April next year, it means star Harrison Ford will be turning 77 during production and will be 78 when the film comes out in 2020. Yes, Indiana Jones will be an old man, and Harrison Ford is an older guy. I still want to see it. I still am very, very passionate about this character. I still think Harrison Ford is terrific on film. You know, just you have to watch Blade Runner 2049, and enough of the people out there didn't. I presume everybody that's watching this, though, saw Blade Runner 2049 and was impressed by Harrison Ford in that. He can physically do the job. It's not, you know, very realistic that a 77-year-old man is out there swinging on whips and stuff like that. But maybe they're going to take this from a different slant. It's too bad that Shia LaBeouf kind of threw a grenade on his career and basically pissed off everybody involved with the Indiana Jones franchise, because he's actually a competent actor, and I think it would have been fun to see that character get better. But you know, I'm very curious to see, man. I still believe in Steven Spielberg. I love Harrison Ford and will forever. And Indiana Jones is my favorite character. It's always between Indy and Batman for me. So yeah, I am psyched. And we'll get the set shots and some early trailers and teasers and stuff probably very soon. I guess at Comic-Con next year, which is crazy. It is nuts, but I'm really glad. And maybe this will be the first step towards a, they get the likeness of Harrison Ford and they do the CG actor thing. I mean, maybe they're going to do that, which would be strange, but maybe I don't know. Some movie is going to pull that off, and maybe it's going to be an Indiana Jones movie. We will see. I will still be there as early as I can see it, and I can't wait. So Disney, make this movie. I can't wait to see it. You have one ticket for sure. All right, with Yakuza 6 about to arrive, another new game in the series is set to follow soon after. I can't believe how many Yakuza games there are. Sega has announced that Yakuza Kiwami 2, first released in Japan late last year, will finally make its Western debut on August 28th. Similar to the first Yakuza Kiwami game, this one is a remake of the second game in the series, originally released in 2006 on the PS2, and is rebuilt from the ground up with new graphics. There will also be new story content and side quests for fans to discover. Before you start worrying about that one, though, which is nuts. Why would they announce this before Yakuza 6 comes out? I've already reviewed it. It's a great game. It comes out on April 17th in North America, and it's so worth your time. But now it's like they're stacking them up because Kiwami just came out a few months ago, too. It's like wham, 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 wham. Sega, I mean, the yearly cycle is tough with the game, but if they're like bi-monthly or every quarter with a new one, it gets a little too much, you know? I mean, the diehards are going to be there, but if you want to expose this wonderful, crazy franchise that you have to more people, ease up, man. Let the anticipation come. Let people play Yakuza 6 and finish it and love it and talk to their friends about it, because it's really fun. It's a very cool franchise. And I guess it is a remake, but still, you don't have to dump them all at the same time. I'm still going to play it. And maybe I didn't review Kiwami 1, so maybe what I'll do is I'll touch on both come summertime. If it's not too crazy in August, we will find out. That comes out August 28th. Now, staying in Japan, the Warriors Orochi series is hacking and slashing its way back into our lives. Koei Tecmo has announced Warriors Orochi 4, the first new entry in the Dynasty Warriors spin-off since 2011. The new game is actually called Warriors Orochi 3 in Japan. I hope I'm saying this right. I never really say Orochi. It's called, thanks to a confusing name change earlier in the series, and players can once again expect to battle waves and waves of enemies in feudal Japan. Warriors Orochi 4 arrives before the end of the year, and I like the crowd fighting games. That's a franchise talking about oversaturation. The idea of all of these characters on screen in game after game after game felt like there was a Dynasty Warriors thing happening every couple of weeks. I remember complaining about that a lot on Reviews on the Run. But it's fun. It's crazy fun. And, you know, Fire Emblem Heroes and Hyrule Heroes and stuff has sort of, I think, got people into that idea. Dragon Quest Heroes as well. God, there's a lot of those types of games. But people love that kind of stuff. So that comes out towards the end of the year, and we've got more stuff set in Japan later on in the show today. We've got a review of a Netflix movie that we're going to tell you about. But that's going to wrap us up for the rundown. Right now, we're going to take a look at this day and everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for March 19th. On this day in 1895, two brothers became two of the world's first filmmakers. The Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis, filmed their first moving picture, recording just under a minute of footage of workers leaving a factory in Lyon, France. The film was first screened a few months later alongside several other recordings the brothers had made. In those days, movies didn't really have stories or characters. They were literally just footage documenting daily life, but that was still impressive to audiences thanks to the novelty of moving images. The Lumiere brothers continued making films for several decades. March 19th, 1962 saw one of the world's greatest musicians get off to a shaky start. Bob Dylan released his self-titled first solo album featuring memorable songs like, well, it actually didn't feature any memorable songs. The album was a flop, failing to connect with critics and audiences and selling terribly. Thankfully, Columbia Records stuck with Dylan, and his second album, released a year later, was a much bigger hit and featured now iconic Dylan songs like Blowin' in the Wind and A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. The lesson here, of course, is that if you fail, keep trying, because the times are always changing. March 19th, 1994 was a very super day for gamers. Nintendo released Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo in Japan, with a Western release following a month later. It used the same side-scrolling exploration and shooting mechanics as the original Metroid, but thanks to the added power of the Super Nintendo, it had much better graphics and music, along with much bigger environments for players to explore. Needless to say, it was a huge hit, selling millions of copies and creating a surge in popularity for the Super Nintendo itself, not to mention establishing Metroid and hero Samus Aran as one of Nintendo's most valuable properties. The Metroid series is still going strong to this day. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Always something cool happening every day. That's why we love this day and everything cool. But right now, let's get into it with a couple of great friends of mine that I've gotten to know over the years, covering things at Comic-Con and at Toy Fair. I just saw both of these guys at Toy Fair. Randy Falk, who's the director of the product development at NECA Toys, joins us. And live from a Toys R Us is Daniel Pickett, who runs Action Figure Insider and is also working at Gentle Giant as well, and has been a part of the toy industry for about 20 years or so. Both of you guys, and thank you so much for joining us, by the way. This is incredible. I'm big fans of both of you, and I love that I got you both on this thing. But it's a big topic. Both of you have been huge Toys R Us consumers for probably most of your life. Randy, do you have a memory of your first visit to Toys R Us?
Maybe not first, but I can remember as far back as, say, somewhere around 4 or 5, going there and buying Megos, DC and Marvel Megos, which was my first big, collection before I got into Kenner Star Wars. But it's a place I always, always went. There's right by where I live, the one I grew up going to. I still visit, take my own business there. So it's pretty sad to see this happen, because it's such a part of my life for as long as I can remember. That's over 40 years worth of being a customer and a consumer. And I remember heck in college when they started the Toys R Us credit card, I signed up for it immediately, because I don't care about frequent flyer miles or dining points. I want Toys R Us money.
Daniel, I know that, as somebody that covers all of the ins and outs of action figures and stuff, you've been going to Toys R Us forever. Do you have some early memories about Toys R Us?
It's funny. I don't remember going to we got a Toys R Us in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know. It was probably 8 or 9. So my earliest memories going there weren't of toys. It was buying cartridges for my Atari 2600.
Yeah.
They had an amazing gaming selection. So I remember buying a lot of ColecoVision cartridges, a lot of Commodore 64 games. So my earliest memories are of that, actually, that giant wall of games that they'd have where you pull the little slip and take it up front.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking about my memories too, and I remember that I bought the PlayStation 1 from Toys R Us, and there was a big, we're based in Vancouver in Canada, and the allotment of PlayStations, because it was a new foray for Sony, was pretty thin up in Canada, but I managed to get one from Toys R Us, and there was a huge line, and of course I bought tons and tons of figures out there. But how could this happen? Daniel, how is Toys R Us closing stores? It isn't happening in Canada as far as we know yet. It's one of the territories that doesn't seem to be affected. But in the States, they're closing them all over the place. How is this happening?
Well, it's funny, a lot of folks kind of connect it to the things they don't like about Toys R Us. They think that things are too expensive or that sort of thing. But really, this started back in the 90s when Toys R Us was having some trouble, and they put themselves up for sale, and they were picked up by a company called Bain Capital and KKR, who kind of bought them as a real estate investment, because at the time, Toys R Us owned all of the land that their stores was on, and they liquidated a lot of that. So there's not a lot of stores owned by Toys R Us proper anymore. So they've been saddled with debt for a long time. And, eventually things like, Amazon and Walmart, that stuff does kind of chip away, but they were kind of in a losing position to start with ever since, they call it vulture capitalism took over.
Yeah. Randy, I mean, you're in this relationship with retailers all across the country, getting NECA toys into these stores. I've bought many NECA figures at Toys R Us over the years. What does this mean for your company? What's going to happen now?
Well, it certainly is not good. We'll feel a hit. Fortunately, the way our business is structured is kind of unique. We're not left with a lot of unpaid bills for the last, say, 4 years or so, maybe closer to 5. We've been merchandising and controlling our own space there, so we don't bring the goods to the distribution center for what they are going to order. We've been sort of controlling the inventory and the merchandising of all our product there. last 5 years, mainly because when we had successes, if you go back to the first Pacific Rim, we had a really great sell-through when that product line came out, and Toys R Us wasn't able to react fast enough to reorder because they just didn't have the budget to bring in more, and it was more like, well, we'll just wait until the next series or until the home video release or whatever it was. And we said, the sell-through is tremendous, like we should restock now, and they weren't able to do that. They couldn't react fast enough. Because of that, we restructured our business with them, and that we work with merchandisers all over the country in America that go out physically to the store and bring in our product and stock it and merchandise it. And the high volume stores, we were doing visits once a week, and then the B and C stores were every other week, or if it was like a real low volume, maybe once a month, but we were controlling that area. So we were getting paid weekly. So some of the stuff, if people are reading or following the story, there's companies like, your bigger guys, like your Hasbros and your MGAs and your Mattels that are, unpaid, 10, 20, $29 million on the line.
Wow.
Fortunately for us, that's, not a factor, because that can put a smaller company like out of business.
Yeah.
We were good in that we were getting paid weekly and had weekly sell-through and controlled that space, knew exactly what was going on. And the bigger picture, it hurts just because it's one less destination, and it certainly was a big destination. They were the only mass market toy chain left, and they were also the only chain store that really cared about the collector. They had that whole section, targeted for guys, like the three of us. Yep. Target, Walmart don't have that focus, and I don't think care to, because it's not a big enough piece of the pie for them to be concerned about. But Toys R Us, did do what they could, and had us and Mezco and Diamond and now the Tamashii Nations. Like, they really made an effort to cater to the mature collector and have a nice section of different product that you previously could only get online or maybe in a comic book shop.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because usually on EP it's always about what's coming up, what's new, what's exciting, what's cool, basically. And this is not cool. This is terrible news, but it's important news. And I think it's kind of analogous to what's been happening with media and in all of its facets, whether it's music or television or everything. Right. It's like we're going into this era of digital specificity, and you kind of have to know exactly what you want. And when a store like Toys R Us closes down, it kind of removes that, you walk through and you stroll through a space and you discover stuff in a way, right, doesn't it, Daniel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's going to be a lost art. It just is, because, there will be places, I'm sure Target and Walmart will try and absorb some of this, but the sheer volume of stuff housed in a Toys R Us, like Randy said, there's a lot of little guys that aren't going to make it out of here because this was their main gig into retail.
Yeah. So Randy, the way that Toys R Us was working with you and maybe some of the other partners out there is kind of similar to what Best Buy has been doing. Is like they have little mini stores, basically. They have all of the square footage and they give you a section of it to kind of run your own store in a way.
Yeah, I mean, Best Buy does it a little bit differently. They don't work directly with the manufacturer, but more like a rep group that sort of services that space, and then they decide what trend, or what vendors they're going to work with. Our relationship, as far as I know, is really unique with Toys R Us, and it also helped us to. It's sad for me because I'm born and raised in New Jersey. Toys R Us is a New Jersey-based company, so that also makes it sting even more because it's the home state. Their headquarters is here in Wayne, New Jersey, and 33,000 people are losing their jobs. Doesn't get much, far crappier than that, But our relationship with them was unique to the other vendor, as far as I know. With other retailers now, like Best Buy and GameStop and Target, to try to get some of the products in there. But there's only certain things that they're not going to embrace the whole line. There's a certain key, like marquee around a game release or a movie that's real hot. They'll try it, but the bigger breadth of what we do, they don't have the real estate to embrace it.
Yeah.
they don't think there's enough customers either. I was 16 to 24 feet. Are you demolishing that Toys R Us in the background?
Daniel, do us a favor.
Of course, of course,
Cup
of course.
cup your microphone like this. Oh, you can't see me. Put your hand over your microphone, and it'll keep the. That's it. It's up a little bit like that. Yeah, it'll keep it more sort of contained to you.
There's a giant trash truck across the street. That's what we're doing.
That's even sadder. But we had like anywhere from 16 to 24 feet in Toys R Us, depending on the store.
That's awesome.
We're gonna get maybe like 2 feet
Yeah.
in a GameStop or a Target, and that's just the reality of what this is, and it sucks. No doubt about it.
Was it a big chunk of, or has it been a big chunk of your overall sales, or do you do more at like a comic? Because NECA is kind of like the, it's a collector's market really, and comic stores and things like which are also facing their own challenges.
Right.
Was Toys R Us a big part of your business?
In the U.S., definitely.
Yeah.
It accounts for a large percentage. And, the thing that you were sort of mentioning before, like that ability to sort of walk around, that's where it's going to hurt the most, because the core collector who's a fan, what we do, they'll always find the product. They're savvy enough to go online or to use an online source like a Big Bad Toy Store or something like that, or their local comic shop. But the bigger difference in the volume we're not going to be able to make up easily is that Toys R Us, you had the browser. You had a casual fan who has no idea who Gentle Giant is or who NECA is.
Yeah.
Just around the store. Maybe they're going in to get a video game or something else, and they just walk by and say, "Hey, what's this?" And they see a cool figure that's $20, and they pick it up. You can't make up those incremental sales anywhere else because there's not going to be a store like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, you can try targeted marketing online, you can try, but there's nothing that takes place that impulse buy. Someone just walks up and sees something they've never seen before and picks up the package and buys it. I would go to Toys R Us weekly, not just to see how our section was merchandised, but to see what else is out there and check out other figures. Even something as weird as like Grocery Gang, which remind me of figures line. Like I'll buy something like that, and I only found it just because it was sitting on the table.
Right. Hey, Daniel, we're thinking that maybe the best thing for you to do is sit in your car. It's amazing that we have the backdrop there, but we're getting so much of the street noise that it's going to be a little bit hard to hear you. So while Daniel's moving, I'll ask you a little bit about the stuff that's coming up from NECA. You've got I was at Toy Fair and I raved about the God of War figure, and you've got the 18-inch Deadpool and some other stuff. What are you super hot about? What's coming up this year from you guys?
Well, like you said, God of War is doing great, and thankfully, since there's a big game release coming and TV advertising around it, that figure is in like Target right now and in Best Buy right now. So that's awesome. To other venues, one of the biggest successes out of Toy Fair is Pennywise, because it was such a big hit last year, and we have the 2017 Pennywise and the 1990 Pennywise. Those will be out later this year. Those will definitely, do really well. Horror as a category overall has been great. We've been doing great with all the Freddys and Jasons and Ultimate Chucky last year. So it's fun expanding on that. I grew up with all those movies, so it's a blast to, sort of now go back and do definitive versions from each film of all those characters.
I love that you guys haven't let up on the video game stuff though either. Like the Crash Bandicoot was one that really surprised me when I saw that. I thought it was really, really great.
Yeah, that's an important one because Crash had some toys, but it was like 20 years ago. And then once those remasters came out last year, I think it did way better than anyone expected. Did the remaster collection for PS4.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to do something with Crash for a number of years, so it's great to see it finally happen. For me, after Mario and Sonic, Crash is the next, big icon, and I have great memories of playing those games on the original PlayStation, like you were mentioning before, picking the PlayStation up when it came out. Crash was such a part of that experience. So now to go back and do a whole collection We've got a few different versions of Crash that we showed at Toy Fair, and we're working on some of the secondary characters now, and some deluxe versions of things like the hoverboard and the jet. And again, talking to other retailers, especially with the demise of Toys R Us, looking at GameStop, Target,
Right.
other
Yeah, and
Best Buy,
GameStop's moving more into that.
Yeah.
Daniel, we're getting the car stereo coming through your microphone.
Always something.
Technology's amazing, and we can do so many things. But Daniel, one of the things that I recognized at Toy Fair this year is that Gentle Giant, who's the company that you work with as your day job now, is also getting back into the consumer market. Was Toys R Us part of the plan and part of the strategy? Because you guys have been more specialized and higher end stuff, and now you're going to try to do a little more mass market stuff with your content, right?
Right. Yeah. We were certainly talking to them, but we were fortunate that the news came out around the same time as we were planning all that. So, we're again not one of those companies that are in it for millions of dollars, like Randy said, like the Hasbros and the Mattels of the world.
Yeah. We've got some footage of some of the stuff that is coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about what's coming from Gentle Giant this year?
Sure, yeah. So we're kicking off a new division called Gentle Giant Toys that is really focusing, we kind of say the junior collector, kind of talking about the people that, don't always go in for,
We lost you.
Our same technology of, digital scanning, digital sculpting, and, just trying to make the coolest thing possible for a lower price point. So we showed off 7 lines at Toy Fair, and we're hoping to get some of that stuff out this fall.
Very cool. You've got little lunch kits. That's one of your the new things. What do you call those?
Yeah. Those are our tiny tin pocket pails. So those are little tin lunch boxes. Right now we've got the licenses for Marvel and Star Wars, and they're just like the little lunchbox that you carried as a kid. For me, that was always a big thing as a kid. Like, what lunchbox are you going to carry this year? And they'll have a little thermos inside that's made of eraser material, and a little handle, and a lot of cool designs, both classic things, some of the style guide art, some cool poster stuff, and then actual replicas of real lunchboxes that, like I carried that Star Wars lunchbox and the Marvel lunchbox as a kid. So it's kind of exciting to see us work on some of that stuff that has that kind of connection for me.
Yeah, I really dug that. Randy, what could Toys R Us have done? Like, how could they have kind of changed this? Was there any way for them to change this course?
I don't know. I think that's kind of above my head because it speaks to larger problems like Daniel was mentioning before about the real estate deals and, owning the property versus leasing it. And then I certainly know my end of the industry and business, which is like boys' toys or action figures. But I mean, what Toys R Us, it includes Babies R Us too. So you have that whole thing plus all the, all the hobby and bikes and video games and the science end of things. It's cars, diecast. They encompassed everything. And like, I don't know that side of the business. I know in the bigger picture, the market for toys with kids has been shrinking for years, for like 20 years, or granted, we all still buy toys, but for the most part, when we were growing up, everyone you knew was into action figures till at least 11 or 12. And like now it's like 7 or 8 is the latest it goes. So you're talking about 4 years of business that these companies are catering to. And then it's eroding because the kids only want electronics. They want iPads, they want video games, they want smartphones. So it's like in the bigger scheme, how does a Hasbro or a Jax or a Mattel or any of these guys that are going after that audience, how do they stay afloat? We collected Star Wars and Joe and He-Man and all that stuff well into junior high.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. So you're not seeing conversion on people that get it. I guess on some of them, I guess they come back to figures, right? They go to games and then they fall in love with these characters and then they want the characters.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing it like that sort of that 20-year cycle. You saw it with Ninja Turtles. I think now you see it with Power Rangers. Those kids who grew up with that, they have the nostalgia then, and 20 years later, they're going back and buying their, the stuff they grew up with, either mint and package or completing loose sets and stuff like we've done with Star Wars or Joe or what have you.
Yeah.
but which is great, but there's only a small amount of people that do that or have that feeling like that they want that piece of their childhood again. I think the larger problem for the big companies is, holding on to that youth, the real target audience, which is what their toys are intended for, which are young kids, ages now, I guess 4 to 8. Like for us, that's not a concern because we're never targeting that bracket. I'm always looking for like most of the time 17 and up on the stuff we sell, because most of it's from M-rated games or R-rated films and stuff like that. So it's rare that I ever think about marketing or targeting my items towards a child. But for Mattel and Bandai and the list goes on and on, Playmates, it's a definite problem, and I don't know that there is a way to overcome that. The world has changed, like technology has replaced that play pattern of kids taking action figures out into the backyard or to the sandbox or to the park or whatever, out in the snowstorm. I remember as a kid just doing the Battle of Hoth in my backyard with my brother, and like.
You can do that later this week, right?
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder, California.
Yeah, we got California and New Jersey talking to each other. Now, Daniel's going to back me up on this. As as challenging as the toy market has been the last 20 years or so, or 30 years, toys have never been better. Like as a collector, you just go to the store and you're like, "Holy crap! Look at these! Look at the detail! I look at the Tamashii Nations stuff with the samurai superheroes and NECA's huge, massive scale figures, which are so detailed, and so like the Superman Muhammad Ali thing is just ridiculous. There's so many great ways in. I am wondering, because we're moving like this, and Daniel worked at Electronic Arts for a long time as well, and I you have your eye on the video game scene for a long time too. We're moving away from the physical possession of a lot of things in media. So it will still be screens, but you're not really collecting at that point. People will still get the physical stuff out there, but we're transitioning to a lot more digital purchases, which leaves toys as something that people will collect, and if moms are and dads are going to the store to buy a present for their son, it's not the same coming back with an iTunes card as it is like a physical thing, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a real shift in collecting mentality from when we were kids. When we were growing up, like for Star Wars figures, Superpower, Secret Wars, like you had to have them all. You'd flip that card over, you'd see everything, you'd check boxes who you didn't have yet, and there was just a real sense of making sure that you had every single figure that you could get your hands on. Kids today don't really collect like that. They get a lot of top tier guys, and their toy box kind of looks like the Playboy Mansion. You'll see Spider-Man, you'll see Batman, you'll see a Pokemon, like anyone who's everyone will be there, but it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, I have all 4 members of KISS or whatever that they're trying to get. It's a real shift in thinking, and that's why you're seeing more of that blind box sort of thing come out, where you get a few of those, and you put a little collection out, but it's not, they want you to collect them all. They're going to make a ton of them, but a lot of kids will just be satisfying having a handful of those things.
You heard it here first, folks. Daniel Pickett connected Pokemon with the Playboy Mansion on EP Live, which is amazing. When you sort of survey the field out there, and like you guys both are kind of in the world of trying to attract people to this hobby and this medium, like as am I, because I love them as well. What are some of the things that you bring up that you notice works to get people sort of like, oh my God, toys have really gotten better, kind of like what toys do you really admire and respect out there? I'll start with you, Randy.
A lot of what Bandai's been doing in Japan, I think, has been impressive. You mentioned like some of the samurai, it's like movie realizations they've done with Star Wars, and then they've done the Marvel superheroes as samurais. The stuff's certainly more expensive, like 3 or 4 times a normal US retail, but the detail is awesome, and it's cool that they're able to take some artistic license and sort of make Darth Vader as a samurai warrior or Captain America or Iron Man. And stuff's it's really cool, and it's super articulated and really detailed. So I've bought a decent amount of that stuff. Just 'cause I think it's fun and it's different, because how many just regular movie versions of Darth Vader and Boba Fett and so forth do I already have?
Yeah.
But to sort of have reinterpreted in samurai form. And it also kind of makes sense, because a lot of the concept artwork and design that Macquarie used when they did Vader was based on feudal Japanese samurai armor and stuff. So it kind of comes full circle, which is neat. Again, for years, like the guys at Sideshow and Hot Toys and Gentle Giant have done great work in the resin category and in the 1/6 category. But that's the stuff's a higher price point. And probably wouldn't be affected by Toys R Us, because it's more of a direct to consumer market. But they do nice work. It's cool to see. Like you said, there's just so much out there now, and it's so well done. And I think a lot of that is because the people creating it, like myself or Daniel and people he works with, we all grew up in that heyday of the late 70s and early 80s, where maybe the toys weren't as detailed, but our imaginations were able to run wild with stuff like Star Wars Joe and He-Man, whether it's the mini comics or the Joe file cards. Like, the play pattern was there. We loved these toys, and we're encouraged to sort of live out our own adventures and recreate our own stories with all of these characters. And that fueled our imagination, and I know mine, for, thousands of hours.
Yeah.
When I wasn't in school, after school, weekends, like, those toys were such a huge part of my life. It led me down the path to do what I do now. Like, that's
and plus the toys were there, and the blockbuster movies were there to support those toys as well, right? It was a golden age for, like, video games erupted out of all of that as well. It was no end of fun right back then.
Yeah, exactly. And another interesting thing that Daniel mentioned about the sort of completist or collector mentality not existing with kids today, I think that is true, because kids aren't into it as long. They don't form that connection. But I think it's also cause and effect. This is part of the manufacturer side, is like these bigger guys are looking to save a buck on their packaging, like the Hasbros and Mattels. So everything's trilingual now. There's not just English packaging, and there's no cross sell.
Yeah.
So the glorious thing we had as kids, you would turn over that card back, you'd have all 92 Star Wars figures, or all 30 Joes that were currently available, and you would sit there and look at them and check off or circle what you wanted or what you had. You don't even have that anymore. So it's like, maybe maybe the manufacturers took that away because they realized that kids weren't doing it. But at the same time, how does a kid or a parent know what else is out there when there's no cross-sell on the back of the packaging? It's like free advertising. They've abandoned it because they're too cheap to print multilingual packaging.
Yeah.
It all just sucks. Like, I sound like an old man, get off my lawn type of thing.
Hey, well, I mean, this is like, we're seeing a massive cultural shift with a huge retailer like this going down. Now's the time to kind of put the spotlight on what the toy industry can do to get the fire going again and get more people to pay attention and stuff. Daniel, now that you can't shop at Toys R Us for very much longer, where would you go? Like, what's going to be the toy shop that you go to, or the toy destination that you go to?
That's a great question. Randy and I, and I'm sure you too, remember, when the last recession happened, we lost all, like, the Tower Records, the Suncoast videos, and that took a lot of retailers with it.
Yeah.
And it just now, sort of, with Toys R Us in that collector aisle, felt like some of that was coming back. So, like, I have bought my entire, like, NECA Alien collection at Toys R Us.
Wow.
So, But now, I got to find somewhere else. I mean, it's great, that you can get it through Diamond and that sort of thing. But again, that's, there's something for us, I hate to say old guys, about walking into a store and finding something instead of just having your comic shop owner order a thing and it shows up later. The thrill of the hunt is something that we'll lose some of with Toys R Us.
Yeah. All right, Daniel. I asked stuff that he's excited for and excited about in the toy world. I'd really like to hear yours. You do a broad sort of sweep of the spectrum with AFI, Action Figure Insider. Tell us some of the things that you're really hot for.
My top one's going to be a little strange. That might be unexpected, but Fisher-Price's Imaginext line is the toy line that I would have gone bananas for as a kid. They do a great mix of both licensed and unlicensed stuff. Their DC Comics line of it is really robust. Like they just released a Swamp Thing and a Mongol.
Wow. For kids.
But then, they just released, unfortunately it's Toys R Us exclusive, but they just released a line of Scooby-Doo Imaginext characters, figures, but they do vehicles, they do play sets, they do. What was that?
That was in the background somewhere.
Oh, but they had a year that was all like dinosaur based. They've done one that's, all like sort of Egyptian and pyramid, just great stuff. And they put a lot of little Easter eggs into the line. I mean, you can tell the guys that make these are lovers of toys. They hid a Walter White figure in one of their blind bag waves.
Wow.
They stuck the little monster grate from Castle Grayskull on the bottom of a
So this line is for kids, but clearly they're thinking of the parents that are buying these things for their kids.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But in my own collecting, I'm a huge sucker for nostalgia stuff. So every time Hasbro starts cranking out those Star Wars figures that look like vintage cards, I'm in. Randy
Randy's nodding his head.
Aliens, yeah. Randy starts repainting his aliens to look like Kenner figures. Pointing at you, Randy. I'm a sucker for that. I can't resist that. So, those sorts of things I just love.
Well, yeah. I wish this was, you know what? Let's let this blow over and the dust settle a little bit. And maybe after Comic-Con or something, I'll probably see you guys or touch base with you guys. But we'll reconvene and we'll talk about happier times ahead for the toy business and other things coming up. Go ahead, Daniel.
Quickly, though, I just want to mention, did you guys hear the rumor about KB Toys coming back over the weekend?
No. That's cool.
Yeah. So there's a guy on LinkedIn that runs a capital firm that buys up sort of old IPs, and he bought KB back in 2016, and he says that they were working on a plan to compete with big box stores like Toys R Us. So they were already in the works, and now that this news of Toys R Us going out of business has been announced, they're trying to accelerate their plans, and he would like to have KB stores open again by December. I think that's ambitious, and we'll have to see. I personally, I won't believe it till I'm standing in one, but it's just an interesting thing that sprung up out of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand is that the because they're not closing them in Canada and they're saying they're doing fine up here, but from what I understand, there was actually money coming through, but it was all the debt and all of the legacy business stuff that was really crushing the Toys R Us brand, which it's all so unfortunate. And I wish I had you guys on for a happier thing. So let's make that happen. I like this idea of the three of us chatting like this because we are fellow toy nerds. And thank you both for being on EP Live. And Randy, special shout out to you because I know you must have buds that work just down the street at Toys R Us that are just going through hell right now. And if you can wish them well from us, please do.
Will do.
All right, buddy. You guys take care. Thank you so much. And right now, we are going to move on to a brand new buried treasure for you. Okay, you guys, I'm cheating a little bit because the new Spider-Man game is coming out from Insomniac Games, and I cannot wait for that, but one of the best Spider-Man games that came out is Ultimate Spider-Man. It wasn't as successful as some of the others, and that's why I'm qualifying this as a buried treasure. This was developed by Treyarch, hot on the heels of their crazy success with Spider-Man 2. They actually contracted Brian Michael Bendis to write the story for this game. It was based on the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books. I believe there was lots of crossover. I recently had my buddy Chris Baker on EP Live, and we talked about about all kinds of great Spider-Man games, and of course this one came up. It looked beautiful. There were lots of great cameos from other Marvel characters in here, and it was just really fun to play. Great mechanics, super cool kind of crossover thread with a villain that we know and love who might be coming to cinemas later this year. But it just was so cool to kind of feel like you were inside the panels of a comic book. They did a very good job, representing Spider-Man's Manhattan. And damn, I would love to see Ultimate Spider-Man remastered or remade, or like a real sequel made for this game. Something along these lines, because that sort of comic booky kind of vibe that we get here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this sort of hyper-real comic book slash realism kind of thing that we've got with the Insomniac title. Can't wait for that, don't get me wrong. But this was something special. Ultimate Spider-Man is a classic, and it's absolutely worth tracking down. Ultimate Spider-Man is an awesome buried treasure. Man, that was an incredible game. I want to play it. Every time I see footage from Ultimate Spider-Man, I'm like, give me a controller. I want to play that sucker right now. Blair Farrell saying one of the best games ever made. You are absolutely right, Blair. I love that you love superhero video games as much as me. All right, let's move on to a review of a Netflix flick. It's called The Outsider. I was surfing around on Netflix after I finished my binge of Jessica Jones, and lo and behold, I found this movie called The Outsider. It stars Jared Leto, and he is in Japan. He plays an American GI trapped in a prison in the 1950s. So clearly he was stationed in Japan. Something happened. There's a lot of mystery about who this guy is and why he's there. But he gets roped in with the Yakuza in Osaka in the mid-50s. So there's an elegant kind of style here, and something, quite foreign. We don't see a lot, literally and figuratively, we don't see a lot of this, kind of storytelling based in a period kind of setting in Japan. I thought all of that stuff was very fascinating. Osaka is a very cool city. I've been to that city and I love it, and I love the history of it. And I also think that there's a lot of mystery and cool depths to kind of explore with the Yakuza. That's why I'm a fan of the Yakuza series from Sega. I liked all of the Japanese actors that are permeating throughout the story. Lots of surly faces, lots of anger, and there's a lot of people that get stabbed or shot in the neck. It feels like the effects department could only ever kill anybody if they could, affix the squibs and the blood gush stuff to people's necks. So everybody that gets killed is either stabbed, sliced, or shot right here, and there was a lot of that going on. It's got a really sleek style to it. The period setting is well represented. Jared Leto is great at not saying anything, and then every once in a while showing off that he's taken some Japanese lessons.
That's the way it is.
But that's about it. There's some strip club sequences, with girls in pasties and some sparkly stuff. And then there's a lot of angry Japanese guys staring across from tables at each other. Lots of threats, lots of allegiances paid to family. There is a sequence in here that goes on way too long where some fingers get chopped off. It doesn't shy away from the violence, but it's violence without any real consequence or lead up or build up. It just sort of happens, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're going for the Scorsese gritty vibe, but without any of the character study or the real depth. It's all kind of, superficial and sort of one note all the way through. And I think Jared Leto took this because it was a gig in Japan. He would look good in these cool suits, and he gets to carry a sword for a little while. But I don't know, man. I felt like I wanted my 2 hours back after I watched The Outsider. This was a very big missed opportunity, and unfortunately I watched it. You don't have to. I'm going to give The Outsider a 4 out of 10. Yeah, I was in a Yakuza frame of mind, but unfortunately that movie did not live up to that expectation at all. It is time for Let's Play and Chat, and this is one of my favorite new segments that we've launched this year with EP Live. We put 15 minutes on the clock, and I got to find my clock, and we play a game. And today I went digging around in our EP archive. We have games dating back to since games started coming out. We've got all kinds of systems, and not everything that we have can run through this streaming setup that we have right now, but we're trying to figure it out. But one system that is able to run is the Dreamcast. We have Power Stone today. This was a Capcom classic arena-based fighter. It has influenced a lot of titles over the years. And so the way that this works, for anybody that's new to joining us live, is Blake is going to join me up on set here, and he's going to go through the chat and see if there's any comments or questions, and he'll throw that into there. And thank you everybody that's joining us live: Blair Farrell, Sean Peterson,
hi everybody,
Paul Adamson, JBJ Blaze, and TFA. We got Adrian Leon, The Last Disciple, Burton Pierre, lots of nice people out there. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everybody that's watching the archive of this. We're also starting to post the archives of our Let's Play and Chat segments. So if you have questions, if you have comments or whatever, you can ask live, like some of the folks are right now. You can add it to the comments below. But let's get started. 15 minutes on the clock. And we'll play a little Power Stone, which I believe was a launch game for the Dreamcast. Someone will correct me. I think it came out
1999. It looks like.
Yeah, 99 was the year that the Dreamcast came out. 99. I remember Bernie Stoller talking about this machine and promising all kinds of great things. And it was not a massive roster, not a super robust, crazy, like revolutionary thing in terms of some of the other biggies that Capcom has delivered over the years, but it really delivered on what it was supposed to deliver, which is this idea of you could have 4 people running around inside of an arena, little Smash Brothers-esque. Smash Brothers definitely borrowed. I think Smash Brothers came out after this. I don't want to get my timing wrong, or was it before?
I remember I was in grade 7, so it would have been 98, 99. It's weird how I remember things like that.
Yeah, it was. Well, they came out roughly in the same time frame for sure. The N64.
I'm asking my good friend Google right now.
Okay, ask Mr. Google, or Ms. Google, when this game came out, and if
January 21st, 1999.
This did.
No, Super Smash Brothers.
Oh, okay, so Smash Brothers first. Okay, interesting.
Power Stone.
Okay, so maybe they saw.
It probably came out. I mean, they would have been developed at the same time.
Yeah, but I'm sure they were influenced by
February 13th. So it came out a month, or no, not even a month. 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later. Okay. So, well, I'm sure. Here's what I think happened. Okay, this is total speculation. Well, they wouldn't have known because Smash Brothers seemed. Smash Brothers. No, they would have known they were working on it. They wouldn't have known that it would have been a big hit.
I think
Smash Brothers was a weird game when it came out. Tommy and I did not like Smash Brothers.
It's just part of the zeitgeist. Wrestling was big in the late 90s.
Wrestling, sure.
You know?
Yeah. But there is so much kind of similarity to this. But it was crazy. Wacky international fighters, and you could pick up stuff. I'm not playing it well because it's been a long time. It's so weird to hold one of these in my hand.
I never liked the Dreamcast controller. It's so weird.
I liked it. It was great for fighting games and racing games.
So I mean, and I like the N64 controller. So you know that has the weirdest controller ever. Oh, and you have the actual little screen thing.
I found this thing. So I don't think it works.
I've never actually played one with the thing inside of it.
Yeah, this is the I forget what this is called. It's
called the touchpad?
MVU or something like that.
It's called the DualShock 4 touchpad.
Well, you know, it has a controller on it. Huh? Did you ever see one of these things?
No.
Yeah,
that is
so
cool.
you could put little tiny games on here, and they could interface with the game on. So many innovative.
So they beat Nintendo to the punch by 20 years with that.
That thing is just it's all very creaky and old technology. I'm always worried something's going to blow up.
Probably can't see because the screen is so small.
Yeah. But this game is fun, and it was fun to play with other people, and you know, certainly I guess it was almost a. Here's what I think. I was starting that story. I think that Capcom heard about Smash Brothers and said, well, we got to have something. We can't have a fighting game that Nintendo has got coming out.
Yeah, but how many other fighting games has Capcom made?
Well, that was
this
it.
This looks like a natural progression.
They didn't make anything quite like this before, though. And so maybe Sega heard about it, and they said, well, we need a kind of a Smash Brothers thing on our machine.
So. I think if you're a developer in the late 90s and suddenly you have 3D consoles, the natural...
You're going to run around in the environment?
Yeah,
sure.
And you've been making 2D fighters your whole life.
My story is more interesting, though.
You might say, well, let's open it up and have it in an arena.
I like the controversial elements of my fable that I've crafted.
She has little titty tassels.
Oh, yeah?
Like little gold tassels on her boobs.
Yeah, what are those called again?
Tassels.
Tassels? I said it. Here we go. Nice to see Power Stone from Amelia Lopez. And what's your first impression? It holds up, man. The Dreamcast holds up.
It looks really good.
Yeah, and
the graphics don't, PS1 games do not hold up.
Yes, the Dreamcast was extraordinarily more powerful than the PlayStation 1. It was not as powerful as the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, like these games still look good to this day.
But they look good, yeah. I mean, this is when real artistry started to happen. And I would argue that the Nintendo stuff, because primarily they had a little bit more polygonal power on the Nintendo 64. They didn't have the texture depth and resolution that the PlayStation 1 had. But the games that, a lot of them that came from Nintendo were sort of more cartoony or sort of favored more cartoony characters.
I remember thinking that at the time that the N64 looked much better than the PlayStation 1. Even at the time, I used to think that.
The worlds don't. Like there's a lack of kind of detail in a lot of the stuff.
But if you know...
But it's the people, it's the characters, especially the
characters look better,
ones.
But if you know, if you're making the game for the N64, you know to tweak it.
VMU, there it is. Everybody's telling us. What is the future of the new IPS in film?
I don't know.
Oh, new IPs in film.
Oh, okay.
What's the future of new IPs in film?
You're gonna have less and less of them.
I think it's going to be streaming is going to be. I mean, here's what's happening with media creation, and this is kind of well known. Budgets are down, ideas are being greenlit, with the idea of trying to generate some kind of huge new franchise and to create new IP, but you're building it with less resource. And even established people, like we just saw Duncan Jones do that movie Mute for Netflix.
Jennifer Lawrence just had a box office bomb, right? Like
yes,
no creator's a sure thing anymore.
No creator's a sure thing, but stuff is still being invested in. But you can also make stuff with less. So everybody is making stuff with less money. There's just less money going around. And even the massive studios with that massive IP, they're more about the IP than the creator, than the artists, the actors, or the directors. It's a huge cultural shift and a financial shift. And it's primarily due to the fact that there is an abundance of choice and the technology to make incredible things, everything, comics, movies, music, video games, all of the technology to build all of TV shows, streaming content, it's all come down in price. And so you can find new IP everywhere, but massive studio IP, tassels, she does have tassels, massive studio IP is gonna be as safe a bet as it can be. And I think it's good that Tomb Raider actually succeeded in the international markets, because I was worried that, okay, well, video game movies are dead again.
It's shocking how much more it made in China compared to the U.S.
But there will be, I think, some more risks on video game IP. There's probably some other big titles on the way that are going to happen.
If they're big, if it's a game that's big in China, like a Battlegrounds movie is probably inevitable at this point.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a question from Link057.
Yep.
Wants to know, what's the black leather jacket in the Spider-Man video? I think he's asking what jacket you were wearing for the Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man Buried Treasure.
Oh.
Do you have a black leather jacket?
I was just wearing my blue jacket, but it was kind of a dark shot because of all the green trees back there.
I don't think it's not actually a leather jacket. Right?
Yeah, it's just a blue. I don't know what the material is, but it wasn't leather.
Yeah.
But it looked pretty good on camera. I like that jacket.
When should we expect your review of Ni no Kuni 2?
I've played enough of it to give you guys a review of the experience, and I was thinking about rushing out to get it done this morning. But I figured I want to spend a couple more hours, because I've just etched past the point where I've seen all of the systems, but now I want to have the systems kind of sit with me and get comfortable with it. And I am also, every time I'm playing it now, it's a new layer of addiction that I wasn't discovering, because all the way along, it wasn't like a tutorial, but it was like, I knew I wasn't getting the full deal all the way that I was playing it, but now I know what the kind of full scope of the game is. So I'll play a bit more tonight, and then I will shoot it in the morning, and it will be an EP live tomorrow. So how's that? And it still doesn't come out till Friday. So I could have pushed it and put the video together today, but I figured a little bit more time would serve the game well. And reviews of A Way Out and Sea of Thieves and Far Cry 5, those are all on deck. And there's a couple other ones coming as well. So when I say on deck, I haven't played through all of these, so it's going to take a little while, but I'm going to be playing a bunch of these, and there's going to be some fun stuff coming. And I'm getting my ass kicked because I'm talking.
Just looking for comments here, people. Send me comments.
I want to know how you guys, your thoughts about Toys R Us and what it was like to see a couple of toy industry pros on the show. We don't normally, I don't think I've ever done like a roundtable type discussion with toy people before.
Yeah, you've only ever done those guys one-on-one.
Yeah, some interviews and stuff. But I felt like this was big, massive news, especially for toy fanatics like myself, and I wanted to get those. I love those guys too. Like Daniel and Randy are awesome dudes, and they always have really cool things to say. But very curious to hear your thoughts on all of that stuff. You guys know I love my action figures and my toys, so it's going to be a continuing part of EP and EP Live. But it is sad to hear about all of the. I could really see it in Randy's face. Like, this is not just some thing that's sort of off in the horizon. This is like pertinent, and it's happening right around him to people that he knows, and his business as well. It's a very weird time.
JPJ Blaze wants to ask us how the weather is in Vancouver.
It's amazing.
It's been nice the last couple of days.
Yeah.
It feels like summer, at least during the day.
It's been very nice to be outside shooting, and not having my fingers feel like they're going to all fall off.
Yeah, it was when we went to New Orleans in January. It was colder there than it was here.
It was freezing.
Like, how did
in New
that
Orleans.
happen?
And it was super cold in New York when I was out there. But, like when I'm out there shooting the reviews, and I've told you guys sometimes I'm out there alone, and, you're setting up all the cameras and all that stuff, and you're like looking at the shot, and you're trying to make it all sort of look all right and in focus and all that. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, and it's pouring rain because we've had miserable rain in Vancouver. And there's been a couple times where I'm like, why don't I just shoot this in the studio, in the nice warm studio? But I like shooting outside because you don't know what kind of energy you're going to get, and clearly that's a part of the reviews on the Run staple.
Mike Gossner says, I think Toys R Us can be saved with a name change and maybe more electronics. I don't know. The name is so recognizable. I don't know if they would want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if KB buys Toys R Us stores, wouldn't it behoove them to just buy the brand as well?
Yeah, like the name is so recognizable.
I mean, it's a bigger name than KB Toys, even though Toys R Us is forever tarnished now because they went bankrupt. Yeah. So maybe KB is a better direction. Like, companies do end. They do.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What is KB? Because I've never heard of this store before.
It's just a brand. I'm not sure.
It
must be
under?
the two founders or something. Oh my God! Look at this. I'm a robot.
Is it a store that went under?
Such a cool game.
When did this store go under?
KB?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's been the big retail die-off.
30 years ago, or because I don't think I ever went to one.
I don't know. Sad. Okay, you can read that one.
It's Adrian Land says it's saddening to see Toys R Us gone. I miss that old commercial with those kids singing that Toys R Us kid theme.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Toys R Us kid theme.
I don't want to grow up. I want to be a Toys R Us kid.
Okay.
With Jeffrey the Giraffe. Yeah, man. Ironically, I was in Toys R Us on the weekend. We were buying a gift for one of my daughter's friends. And everybody was in good spirits there. They actually had a hiring sign. They were hiring in the middle of spring, which was kind of crazy. But the teller had no inclination that there was any big, huge turmoil. She actually thought that it was a possibility that the States was still like they were still going to be open. It is surreal to think that huge brand is gone. Like, they're so proliferate.
I would be shocked if the profitable stores here in Canada didn't continue, either under a new name or under the same name with new management.
Yes.
Like, you look at HMV. HMV in Canada shut down a few years ago, but in BC, the stores were all pretty much profitable, and they all became Sunrise Records.
Okay.
So I think I would be if a store is making money, somebody's gonna keep making money. With
it is the great retail, shakeup. It continues. How much do you guys, and you can comment down below if you watch this later, if you're live, you can comment right now, but how much do you guys buy your stuff, your games, your movies, your toys, whatever, the stuff you collect and love? Do you buy it at a store, or do you just download it now? Do you just buy it from the e-stores or Amazon, or where do you get your stuff now? Do you bother going to retail establishments?
Most people in the chat are saying they're disappointed that Toys R Us is shutting down.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty consistent. I mean, I don't think there's going to be anyone happy about it.
No.
Unless you're Amazon.
I don't think honestly, it benefits them because if they undercut them, which they can because of their buying power, a store like that is sort of like a physical catalog, for an online retailer, and they can't replicate that. That's the thing. Like, it just can't be easily set up. And same with Best Buy and all these massive stores that have taken up a lot of square footage. Once they go, we have lost that kind of showroom for our hobbies, which is sad, man. But I'll tell you this, in the face of this, to walk into any of these retail establishments and to be disappointed by the experience is, shame on them, because the whole world knows how difficult it is to keep a store open. And if you walk in and, let's say the store's hours are weird. I've done this too. I've gone to go buy something and it's on the front door, it says open from 11 to 5. And it's like, do you want to close your business?
You go opening day and they don't have the thing you want.
Yeah, and if they don't have the thing they want, or they have an employee that has no idea what you're talking about, or if it's coming, or what, it really is incumbent, if your business is to have people come in and have a great experience, work all those angles so that people walk away and say, I'm going to go back to that store, And frankly, I don't think that's happening too often in the retail space,
A couple of people are saying they usually buy physical media at an online retail.
Yep.
I think that's I think most people do buy stuff online now.
Yeah.
That's why all these brick and mortar stores are shutting down.
One newer outlet was closed, but other. I prefer stores for collectibles, especially comparing figure paint jobs. Yes, a great point, Emilio Lopez. That's true. I'm a fanatic about that as well. Sometimes I look through every figure on the rack until I find the one that I really want. It is nice to have stuff delivered to you, like Santa Claus. It's cool. You go to pick up a package. It's like, oh, this is for me.
Soon it will be, because it'll be a drone in a couple of years, right?
Right. And they will paint them like Santa Claus. They will. It'll be reindeer drones. Oh my God, that is going to be a huge market, dude. Oh my God.
Okay, bye everyone.
Okay, guys, that's gonna wrap us up for EP Live today. Tomorrow, my friend Jules Washram is on the show. I'm gonna find out how to pronounce his last name properly, but he's gonna tell us about Atui and the Chicken Wiggle game that's in development, but also their history and lots of other cool stuff. He is a huge Nintendo nerd, and he's a great dude, and I can't wait to talk with him. Plus my review of Ni no Kuni 2 and other fun things, because we talk about all kinds of fun things on EP Live. Thank you for watching, everybody. Patrick Furtado, Doi Owen, Dark Storm Chew 007. Thank you, guys. And if you watch the archive of this, thank you. Remember, we've got lots of other content for you to check out, so please do that. And if you dig it, hit subscribe, that little bell. And if you're so inclined, that sponsorship button, too. We'll see you tomorrow.